excerpt from Dr. Walt Laramore's book, The Highly Healthy Child. I was with Sarah when she took her last breath. She didn't die from a car accident. She didn't die from a drowning or a gunshot wound. She died from obesity. I first saw Sarah for her 3-year-old well child visit. She was already overweight. Her baby bottle was filled with a soft drink. Through the years, I coaxed, pleaded with, beseeched, implored, encouraged, and appealed to her parents and family to change their ways. They did not. Sarah's first hospitalization for diabetes occurred when she was only 8 years old. High blood pressure began at 10. Her family's lack of attention to these problems led to asthma, heart problems, and scores of hospitalization. Finally, at age 14, Sarah's body gave out. Her last admission was for a diabetic coma that led to a massive heart attack and death. When she died, I cried. I know most of us are aware of the epidemic of childhood obesity, but the American Public Health Association has this to say about tackling childhood obesity. Every community member can and should realize the serious consequences of childhood obesity. Collective awareness will shift social norms and engage all sectors in the promotion of healthy eating and physical activity. So today, I hope to share with you some knowledge that I have gained in my research in order to achieve this collective awareness. Most of us can probably look at an obese or an overweight child and imagine the social discrimination that they would get. We've all been kids and we know how mean kids and adults can be. But it's become more serious in the last 4 decades, and children are now faced with diseases that were once considered adult diseases, such as high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, type 2 diabetes, sleep apnea, so kids can actually stop breathing while they're sleeping, bowel cancer, and a higher risk of heart attack and stroke. And I believe, and I'm sure most of you would agree, that the possibility of these diseases, coupled with the social discrimination, could negatively affect the overall quality of life for a child. It is a preventable disease, a preventable cause of death, second only to smoking cigarettes. So some alarming facts about how this affects healthcare costs. I don't think this is going to stick. From 1979 to 1981, the cost of healthcare associated with childhood obesity was $35 million, which is a lot, and it increased to $127 million in 1997 to 1999. Well, from what I could find, there's not a record of what it cost in the last 5 to 6 years, but I did find one source that said that it was not necessarily children, but obesity as a whole in the United States was estimated at $116 billion in the year 2000. So that's kind of crazy that's 1999. So 17 million children in the U.S. are overweight, and 12 million of those are obese or borderline obese. And like I said, it is the #2 cause of preventable death in the U.S. Children that have childhood obesity are 70% more likely to be obese into adulthood, and that is raised to 80% if they have obese parents. Based on several studies, one by David Ledwig of Children's Hospital Boston, and there have been many other studies by his colleagues and different experts in the field of obesity, specifically to children. Many experts believe that if the current epidemic of obesity continues at its current rate, that our life expectancy could be shortened in coming decades. So what that means, in other words, is our children will very likely be the first generation to decrease life expectancy since the beginning of mankind, which is huge. Our children are changing the course of history with something that is preventable. So here is how rapidly obesity in children has increased. In the 1960s, the average weight of a 10-year-old boy was 72.4 pounds. And in 2007, the average weight of a 10-year-old boy was 92 pounds. And this is just average, and so many children that are 200 plus have really brought that average up, so that would put them in the obese category, or morbidly obese category. While there are a small number of children that do have genetic disorders that cause obesity, that is really rare. There's like a dot on a map that are caused by a genetic disorder. The causes are basically that we live in a sedentary society. I'm sure we're all aware of video games and TV. 43% of adolescents watch a minimum of 2 hours of TV per day, and that's just a minimum. Many of the interviews that I watched with children from 12 to 17 claim to be watching 5 hours of TV per day with no physical activity. And the Wii is kind of cool because it gets them up a little. Lack of exercise and physical activity is the main cause for this. Unhealthy eating patterns, our busy lifestyles. There are more single parents, and I mean, we all know that it's just easier to stop on the way home from work and grab a burger for your kids.
Okay, you're at 7 minutes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you over there.
It's okay.
There are several,
So you have to conclude.
okay. In closing, I would hope that this has been an educational experience about an epidemic that clearly needs attention. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know that anyone does, but I hope that I've educated you, and we can do everything in our power to keep our own families from becoming one of these statistics.